Hey friends, I'm Christy and you're listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast for women who are done playing small. If you've been shrinking to keep the peace or waiting for permission to want more, climb aboard because we are going to make some waves together. Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you're never left stranded on the shore. And if you want a more connected experience, visit thrivewithchristy.com to learn more about the Thrive Collective, a community that combines boat rocking energy with the grounding effects of yoga and breathwork with live calls and classes. Now on to the show. I am so excited for this conversation today. We have been working to align our schedules so that we could have what's bound to be a juicy conversation. My guest, Alison Kinsey, spent nearly 6 years in tech sales, earning over $220,000 a year before getting unexpectedly laid off in August. Instead of panic applying to hundreds of jobs, she decided to take a creative sabbatical. And she's been documenting her career break journey every single week on her podcast, Real Time Creator. She's also the co-founder of Podcasting for Creatives, a boutique podcast editing agency for female entrepreneurs. And she is obsessed with choosing the more squiggly, interesting path in life, which I love because I feel like this is going to be an interesting and squiggly conversation. Welcome to the show, Alison.
Hello, Christy. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we are going to get into it today. Lots of juiciness.
Well, I love listening to your show, Real Time Creator, and that's in a roundabout way sort of how we connected. You were recommended by someone on LinkedIn. I said, hey, let's have a virtual coffee chat. You said yes. We realized how much we have in common, color-coded books, launching a podcast, career exits, all the things.
A lot of things. Yeah, I'm so excited to just dive into this path more. It'll be really fun.
Well, let's go back because the catalyst for everything that you're doing right now was your layoff last summer. So tell us a little bit about what happened and how you were feeling about it at the time.
Yeah. So when you get laid off, it is like a huge collage of feelings all at once. It's a lot of feelings. And I had been working in tech sales for 6 years almost at the same company where I was just driving hard for specific quotas every single quarter. And when I got laid off, I think the first thing I felt was the bruised ego. Because it never feels good to be laid off. It does, it affects you a little bit, like mentally, that I was the one who was chosen on our team to get the boot. But I also felt an insane amount of relief washing over me because I had really been feeling this like intuitive feeling for the past year prior to the layoff that I was just wanting something more out of life. There was this feeling of, am I even living my purpose? Is this the thing that I'm going to do the rest of my life all the way to retirement? I could stay in sales, be super comfortable financially, continue to get those commission checks every quarter, and live a sort of white picket fence career on paper. And so in that moment, when I got that 15-minute meeting on my calendar, I knew something was up. When do you get a 15-minute meeting on your calendar with your boss just out of nowhere? But I remember walking into my husband Steve's office immediately after it happened. And I said, I got laid off. This happened. And he looked at me and he said, you're free now. And I still get chills when I tell that story because it was also just this feeling of freedom. I didn't have to take a million Zoom calls a day in that moment. I could make the choice to do whatever I wanted after that. And I chose a sabbatical, a career break.
I'm sure that was a tough day and weeks that followed. We were talking about it before we hopped on that I looked up and over 5 million people have been laid off in the US so far this year. So you are unfortunately not alone, but I appreciate you sharing your experience because there are so many people going through that right now, and especially in tech.
It's crazy to be a statistic of that because it is happening everywhere. It's super competitive. And for a lot of people, they do have to go and find that next job right away. So I do feel, I guess, privileged in a sense that I was able to make this choice and I did not actually need my full salary to live my life.
Yes, that has been one of the learnings of my career break. You learn the difference between disposable income and necessities. And I I consciously chose to leave last November, but we had sold a piece of property. We invested some of it towards our new house, and then I took some time off and did the same thing, had created this budget. How long can I be out of corporate work? Now, I was trying to build a coaching practice or a consulting practice. I think because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, nothing really landed. So I am going back to corporate, but still have, creative endeavors that I'm pursuing. But what made you choose this creative sabbatical? What was on your heart?
It felt like the right moment. You know how sometimes you dream and think about all these things that you want to do, but for whatever reason, your mindset keeps you stuck. Maybe you're dealing with imposter syndrome, or you have fear of judgment or fear of failure. I mean, I had all of those things going on for years, and sometimes I feel like you just need to be forced into it. So this kind of felt like the universe was giving me that fire to go forward and try something. And creativity's always just been at the heart and soul of what I like and want to do. I love writing. I love creating content. I love just play and fun and experimentation. And this felt like an opportunity to almost take myself on like a fellowship of sorts where I could just have this blank canvas and I have absolutely no regrets. We're told to get the amazing job and climb the ladder and just work, 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 work. And work was always my number one priority in life. It was the only thing I cared about. I would proudly call myself a career woman. But there's so much more to life than work. And that's the thing that I'm sort of discovering through this period. I knew that I wanted to actually bet on myself to do something. And the podcast is just one project that emerged from this. I didn't even plan to do a podcast, but just having that white space gives you the energy to really dream and think of ideas. And then I had the time to actually pursue it.
Yes. People would suggest to me, oh, you should start a podcast because I wrote a blog for years. When I wrote my sobriety memoir years ago, I said, oh, mom was taught not to rock the boat. So I wrote down this idea about rock the damn boat. Maybe it would be a talk someday. Maybe it would be a new book. And it became the podcast. And so it's like the ultimate boat rocking moment for me was leaving corporate. And like you said, one of my core values used to be work ethic. And when I had to re-examine my core values when I got sober 8 years ago, I was like, work ethic is still trying to please other people. That is not a core value of mine. It is something that I'm programmed to do. So I am so glad that you took that chance on yourself and realized we're all programmed to be that way. Real Time Creator is the podcast, and it is in amazing bite-sized, commutable episodes. What prompted that idea and how you do things?
So what's interesting about the podcast is that I thought I was going to launch a newsletter or a Substack. And I kept becoming a total over perfectionist every time I sat down to write my story because it's like, are the sentences perfectly crafted? Is this even making sense? Is this all the detail that I want to share? And one day I told myself, what if I wrote from the lens of this being a podcast outline? And there was something about that reframe that completely just opened the floodgates. I had an outline for my first episode so fast, and then had that realization that, wow, okay, I guess I'm going to be doing this. And I think a lot of people out there have stories to share, have expertise in something, or even a passion in a topic that they could talk forever about. And a podcast is just such a great, powerful way to get your story out there and to boost your visibility. And it doesn't have to be something that you overthink. You don't have to be in a fancy studio with multiple cameras. You don't even have to interview people if you don't want to. I chose to do mostly solo episodes, and that's been really freeing because it's on me to create the content every single week. So I think there's a lot of really beautiful things about a podcast, and it also opens the door to things that you don't necessarily anticipate either. Some of our podcast clients that we work with in our podcast editing business have gotten pitches from book publishers. Some of them have gotten opportunities to speak on stages internationally, and it's all from people discovering their podcast and their content. So it really pays to put yourself out there. And I was somebody that really wasn't a very visible person. I felt really awkward and uncomfortable putting myself out there. And it really felt like I was just opening my diary to the world, because here I am sharing my salary. Here I am sharing all the ups and downs of working in tech and all the things we cut from our budget, personal things that not everybody is going to share publicly. But I think by nature, a lot of humans are just naturally curious and they love hearing about other people's lived experiences.
I love that. I feel the same way. It's just fun. I'm having a lot of fun. And I tend to be a perfectionist with the editing, which I know your husband Steve is with the sound. So my sound is okay. It's manageable, but yes, I can get really caught up in cutting out fluff words and verbal crutches and those things. And I think, well, that's how we talk in daily life. I need to be a little less heavy-handed with the editing. But that's what I find so fascinating about your story, because you and Steve have had this podcasting business for what, 7 years?
7 years.
So you've been behind the scenes all this time.
I know, behind the scenes, and never thought I was ever going to be the one actually doing my own. So it's interesting to kind of be on both sides of that curtain, to see how it comes together, but then to actually do it is a whole different experience.
So what took you into that business to start with, if that's not something that maybe you had particular interest in at the time?
Yeah, and hopefully this inspires people, because this was very much a business where fake it till you make it was the mentality, meaning it started as a side hustle. My husband, Steve, did go to college for audio engineering, so he naturally had an ear for this. It literally started with somebody reaching out asking if they knew, like, hey, do you know of a podcast editor? And I was like, we can do it. And sometimes that's how these things happen. It was very much an accidental business, but it grew really quickly. And it grew mostly from referrals. And I will be honest in saying we didn't have a logo or even a name for our company for the first couple years. We didn't have a website for a while. Still to this day, we really don't market our business on social media. It has very much just grown through word of mouth. And if it weren't for the business, I would be scrambling to look for jobs online. But it's very fulfilling, and it's a great steady business model. So we make reoccurring revenue every single month. So clients pay us a subscription fee to have all of their episodes edited by us. And occasionally there's other bells and whistles thrown in, like social media clips and show notes and all of that. But at one point, our business grew to 22 clients at once. And that was a lesson learned just in don't scale too fast. It's not worth it. And that has carried through even to now. I am so happy having a more boutique business. I don't need to be the biggest podcast editing company in the world.
Yes, quality over quantity, it sounds like. And that's
Yes.
important, especially friend and I were texting just this morning about how burnout and nervous system regulation are two phrases that we should not hear every day, but we do. And so
Yeah.
being discerning about your workload, I think, is really valuable and important.
Yeah. And burnout regulation, I mean, that's something that I think is affecting a lot of women in tech right now because I think there's a lot of people out there that are just naturally high achievers that want to do right by their company. They want to succeed. And that is rampant. I think I was also suffering a bit of burnout in my role, but it didn't feel loud. It felt like a quiet whisper of burnout.
Yes, mine too. And I appreciate that my generation is talking about menopause loudly because then your generation will be ready for it all. But it's crazy. Like, I had the combination of having been in corporate retail for a very long time and then hormonal changes last year that meant that I'm like, it snuck up on me. It was okay. I feel a little bit out of sorts with this job and I feel like maybe I've got a lot on my plate, but I loved all of it. And so that made it okay. I was like, no, you had a lot on your plate, period. The end. I had never taken any time off from corporate retail. I've seen some companies require sabbaticals. Like I used to buy from Nike, and Nike required a 5 week sabbatical for every 10 years of service with them. I don't know if they still do it, but I just had never taken any time off. I think that the generations now are looking at that sooner, although it's sad that it's because we're coming to this burnout state, all of us. Information
Mm.
overload. But I think that's what I love too about podcasting and even listening to podcasts. It's real conversations that are happening, whether it's two people or like you sharing your thoughts. There's something relatable in that, and it's genuine and authentic.
Yeah, it has been a lot of fun and it is cracking open doors and it's building confidence. Like, there are a lot of positives for sure.
Yes. You mentioned confidence, and you took the stage at a local meetup recently, right?
Yeah. So that's what's really powerful when you do put yourself out there. People take notice. Even if they're not commenting or liking, there are people lurking around watching you in the most non creepy way. And one of those doors that cracked open for me was the opportunity to speak in front of over 100 people on a local podcasters panel. And it was really empowering to do this, to take the stage in my local community. It was great practice for just being on stage. And I remember feeling so nervous. I actually think the anxiety of the weeks leading up to the speaking engagement was worse than actually being live on stage. But it was great to do that. And I've had other doors open. Like I've had LinkedIn posts go viral and people reach out to me, which I think is what even prompted us connecting.
Right.
So it's just about like putting out those little feelers. And I'm actually taking it a step further now where rather than letting opportunities reactively come into me, I'm thinking about it through the lens of how can I be proactive and proactively reach out to people, even if it's terrifying, even if I feel weird about it.
And what kind of things are you looking for? Is that like speaking opportunities or helping share about podcasting? I'm just curious what those some of those endeavors look like.
I would love to be able to inspire more women to choose that more interesting path in life with their career, with their livelihood. I mean, I'm on the cusp of selling my house, which is something that came out of this career break. I would not be doing this right now if I was still working my full-time job. I am thinking a lot about like where can I push my story further? Where can I maybe get covered by a media outlet or a news article?
I think that's great. Giving women permission to do this. We don't give ourselves permission to do these things. You didn't have a choice. You got laid off. Your husband said, "Great, you're free." When I told my husband I wanted to quit corporate, the conversation went a little different. The first knee-jerk reaction was no. When I look back on the courage it took to have that conversation with him, I know it was years of learning to use my voice, learning to set boundaries, learning to overcome people pleasing. There are women out there like both of us who have that niggle, that intuition. We need to give them the courage to step out, step up, do these different things, these squiggly lives.
Yeah. There's a reason that that happens. And I think a lot of us just kind of push it down. We ignore it for a long time. And I circled these thoughts a lot. It was always like coming up in my journal that I felt complacent. And complacency is a dangerous word.
Yes.
There's nothing in that word that is evoking energy, fire, passion.
That's a great way to put it. So, if any of our listeners are feeling complacent, we are here to prove that you can shake yourself out of that and find that
Yeah.
courage, that spark. One of the other things that I hear a lot in today's language is somatic. I did somatic experiencing work back when I wrote my memoir because I had a lot of old memories coming up. Somatic work gets you down into your body and yoga, different things that you can do, but there's also specific exercises. But I just signed up for a somatic healing course to help with that because I think that that is one answer to the things that we're feeling. It's like you said, learning to tap into that intuition, that gut feeling, that feeling that something isn't right. We ignore it. We tune it out.
And I think because we're wired to think certain things, I mean, even when I first got laid off, my immediate reaction within the first week was to be busy. I sat in front of my computer for over 8 hours a day because I was just so used to that. It was habitual. And I didn't even really give myself the permission to just have fun and take advantage of the fact that I can go to Target on a Wednesday morning or go on this nature hike on a Friday. Like, I didn't even give myself that. And I had to learn that no, this is actually okay to develop this new day-to-day routine, this new lifestyle. And I think continuing to listen to your body too, especially as you evaluate new opportunities. I have had a couple of recruiters slash CEOs, co-founders reach out interested in interviewing me or having a conversation about a position. And that's the first thing that I'm doing is really dropping into my body
Mm.
and noticing how that feels. And every single time without fail, I feel this resistance. Like, it's so hard to explain, but I feel this tension. And that's what signals to me that, okay, like my nervous system is not ready right now for this. But maybe it will be in 6 months. Maybe it never will be. I don't know. But I'm tuning in. And that's how I'm really moving through these types of decisions as they come.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I had applied for a job that was basically the job I left last fall. Exact same job, different company, front runner for the position. And every time I would talk to someone about it, I would cry, literally cry. And I knew my body was telling me something. Maybe the company wasn't right. I don't know what it was, but there was definitely signs that this was not the thing. And then the job that I ended up accepting contacted me the same day I applied. I had a dream that night that I went out to visit their offices and talked to them a week later, and we closed the call with, "Hey, we'd love to have you out to our office as a next step." And I was like, I literally dreamed this.
That's so incredible.
It's just crazy how things fall into place and the synchronicity. And when you start to notice those signs, you know you're on the right path. And I tell people all the time, it's okay to change your mind. especially when I have young people ask for career advice. I always tell them, like, yes, decide on what you might want now, but it does not have to be that thing forever. Just like you may decide never to go back to sales.
Yeah. It makes life more interesting.
We've talked about a lot of benefits over your creative sabbatical. What has been the most rewarding thing about it?
Ooh.
And it
Okay,
doesn't
that's
have
a
to be one
juicy
thing.
one. I think the most rewarding thing about the sabbatical has been tuning into my core values and feeling
Mm.
like my life and my day to day is aligning with my core values again. I realized that working in sales, there were so many things about my core values, which are more about community, adventure, travel, fun, especially community, though, where I just wasn't fulfilling those things in my values. So I think that's been really rewarding. And I think ultimately coming to the decision to sell our house has really been huge. It would be hard to not mention that. It was something that I had been circling pretty early on after the layoff. But I was kind of, again, trying to rationalize with myself like, this is crazy. What are you thinking? This is just your mind trying to fixate on something else. But it kept coming up over and over and over again, like months later. So that was my sign that, okay, like this actually feels right, even though it's crazy. So we're selling our house and we're going to do RV life slash nomadic Airbnb life for the next 1 to 2 years. So that's been the most rewarding. And I think the last thing I'll add just on this topic is when you have all the time in the world in front of you, it gives you that opportunity to experiment. So I have been experimenting with art. That's actually been like an interesting kind of squiggly zigzag path that I've gone on that I didn't expect. And I'm allowing myself to just have fun with that. I actually signed up for a 6-week pottery class and quit because it didn't feel aligned, but I actually felt good about quitting. And I gave myself the permission slip to quit that.
Yeah,
So,
I listened to that episode. I loved it because it was relatable to a lot of hobbies that I have walked away from.
yeah, but it's like it was there in your brain as a curiosity for a reason. So, to at least be able to say, I chased after that curiosity, I tried it, I maybe didn't have the result I expected. I'm not going to be like a ceramic artist, but I tried it and it feels good that I gave it a shot.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I was going to ask maybe not what the most disappointing is, but maybe the most different. And yeah, maybe it was that you tried pottery and you didn't like it.
I would say that and probably just the fear of the unknown a little bit. It
Mhm.
will always kind of be in the back of my mind. How long can I actually keep doing this?
Yeah.
Am I going to run out of money? Is this just not going to work in the long term, even though I'm really enjoying this chapter? So there's a lot of what ifs that do keep me up at night from time to time because I don't know the answers. I don't know if I'm going to one day just want to apply for jobs. I don't know if I'm going to go back into sales. I don't know if something's just going to click and take off with my content and all of a sudden, like my dream comes true. So I'm getting comfortable sitting in that unknown.
I love that. And I have the benefit of when I got sober 8 years ago, it was one day at a time. And I keep saying that this first year post corporate felt like that year because it was like, okay, relearning everything I thought I knew. I did the same thing you did. I had this full task board, and my husband and I got in an argument one night, and I said, I'm in there, 12 hours a day doing whatever. And he's like, I know, and I feel bad for you that it's not coming to fruition. We were both coming from, a fear place, and
Yeah.
me trying to throw spaghetti at the wall to see what would stick, and that's usually not a good strategy, but but
Sometimes you have to get messy.
yeah, yes, yes, that's true. That's true. I was like, surely something's gonna, track, but I also think that I was not giving myself that permission to say, like you said, just being like, hey, this could be a little mini vacation. I did take February. I stepped away from all content creation, everything else to finish my manuscript. So that'll be self-published this fall. So yeah, I'm
So
excited.
exciting. That's fantastic.
My dream was always to quit corporate and write full time, and that is so different now. It's kind of like tech and AI. I mean, writing is just so different, and it's not necessarily something you can make a living at. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we're kindred spirits from the start, and I'm excited. Digital nomad journey. It's funny, speaking of changing your mind, I listened to that episode where you said, I nearly panic sold my house. And,
Yes.
now you're not coming from a place of panic. You've contemplated and you're making this decision.
And it goes against the norm, but that's what kind of makes it interesting and different. Like, I'm excited to just not have to deal with maintenance and landscaping and upkeep of a house. Like, it will be very liberating, I think. Already, even just downsizing and getting rid of stuff has felt so freeing.
That's incredible. Now, if someone wanted to work with you and Steve for your podcasting business, where could they find you?
Yeah, definitely excited to meet potential folks that are interested in starting, or if you have an editing team and you want to switch. Our website is podcastingforcreatives.com. And yeah, we love working with women entrepreneurs, thought leaders, coaches. Yeah, come our way. We'd love to meet you.
Well, I'm excited because now with steady income, maybe I can afford to record my first book, audiobook. You had talked about you also offer audiobook services. So
Yes, that would be really exciting. That would be so fun.
I can tell you right now, my current setup, not going to be appropriate, but we'll figure something out.
Yes.
Yes, I know Steve will have the technical specs that I need to follow, and this will not be it. But I took imperfect action. That was something I learned from my yoga teacher. So imperfect action all the way.
Yeah, it's what you have to do.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was ready to rock the damn boat. And speaking of which, I always like to end the show by asking my guest who their boat rocking role model is.
I think this is such a fun question. And I sat with it for a minute and then I was like, yes, it's this person. So, Jacqueline Johnson, who is the owner of Create and Cultivate, it's an incredible company that's just all about women empowerment. They host a bunch of events and supper clubs and all kinds of things for women all around the US. What inspires me about her in particular is that she sold Create and Cultivate back in 2021. It was a $22 million acquisition, and then she bought it back. How badass is that? Like, she realized that they actually need me. So she bought it back. She's been running it ever since. And she's also just like a powerhouse investor. She invests in a lot of women-owned
Yes.
startups and businesses. And she makes really good money too. And she's often very transparent about her spending and all the things that she's doing. So I just really admire the transparency and the grit and the fact that she's been able to have successful exits too. Something I probably wouldn't do, but it's really cool to watch from afar. So Jacqueline Johnson, I highly recommend if you haven't heard of
Oh,
her.
she is a great one. I just went to the event in Austin a couple of
Yeah.
months ago. So the one that was affiliated with South by Southwest, and I picked up and went on a whim. I found out that a founder friend was supposed to be there. She ended up not being there, but I made some great connections, got to see Jacqueline Johnson in person, and heard some great speakers. And yes, I have nothing but great things to say too. In fact, I got a new newsletter from them today, and it's always great tidbits in their newsletter too. That is a great choice.
Yes.
Well, Alison, it has been incredible. People can also listen to you on Real Time Creator, your podcast, which I love tuning into.
Yeah. And I would say if anyone is new that decides to hop over and listen, start with episode 1.
Yes.
That's where it really gets into the nitty gritty juiciness of the layoff and the early days of my career break. So I always tell people, if you can, start in order and go from there.
Yes, that is really smart. If I get behind a week or two, I always go back to the one where I left off because I know you're documenting in real time. So it's always great to hear about your path. So thank you for sharing that with my listeners today. And thanks to all of you for listening to the show.
Yay. Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to Rock the Damn Boat, a podcast produced and recorded by Christy Hughes. You can follow, subscribe on both Apple and Spotify, and your 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you so much for your support of the show.